I would like to welcome everyone. My name is Guilherme. I have a bachelor degree in hotel management from Senac São Paulo, Brazil, and I currently work as a customer success analyst at AskSuite.
Hello everyone, welcome. It is a great pleasure to be here today. I'm Professor Ana Marta Araújo from Senac São Paulo in Brazil, and we would like to invite you to come along and join us for the next few minutes to discuss our research on virtual hospitality in educational platforms.
I would like to mention that this research was held in 2020, before COVID-19 started spreading, and the impact suffered by the educational system due to the coronavirus pandemic has kept over than 90% of students around the globe away from their campus activities. As a way to get along with the academic obligations, of course, despite the temporary campus closure, online platforms has gained a great number of new students and educators, as most of them learn together how to cope with online classes.
Therefore, it showed to be greatly relevant to hold a research that had as its question what are the main factors that can transform virtual learning platforms into hospitable immaterial spaces. And as for the research objective, we wanted to identify the main aspects that transform virtual learning spaces into truly and meaningful, hospitable places. Given that context and research overview, it is important to bring here the main concepts that led our research. Here we'll highlight three main authors and their approaches. So, coming from the notion of Marcel Mauss's triad to give, to receive, and to give back, the first for sure is the concept of hospitality, for which we used Camargo's approach, since he is the most renowned Brazilian researcher on that field, and considering that we are dealing with cultural aspects regarding the relationships between educators and students, it was clearly important to have a Brazilian author so that the approach would be culturally accurate to our research field. Camargo organizes the hospitality rituals and scenes into 4 times: to host, to accommodate, to feed, and to entertain, and 4 spaces: the domestic, the public, the commercial, and the virtual spaces. He also discussed the non-written hospitality laws, which hold the core reasons for the hospitality rituals. The second author that contributed to our research approach was Conrad Lashley and his concept of hospitableness, which gives us a perspective of not only what is hospitality, but especially how it translates into actions and how to be someone who is able to host and build meaningful and genuine relationships with guests, even or especially considering the commercial domain of these relationships. Therefore, through hospitableness, one will truly promote a hospitality experience. As for Quintarelli's approach, his 2019 book brought us the notion that the virtual space can't be treated as the opposite of reality, which is a very important statement. Although it has an immaterial conception, it does exist as a real interaction space. So in virtual spaces, as for the hospitality scenes, we can organize it understanding that in spite of being an immaterial space, the virtual space is a real space. It is also relevant to register here that e-learning provides a very different and less intense interaction experience when compared to remote learning, where live encounters and activities are the main strategy for classes. On our research, we looked for the remote learning reality in a Brazilian university. So, based on the concepts presented so far, as for the online learning platforms and all the virtual space as well, we understand them as potential real gathering spaces. Therefore, they can be not only potential spaces for hospitality scenes to happen, but especially in social distancing times, they are a viable alternative to promote healthy, safe, and meaningful social encounters if the hospitality rituals and non-written laws are applied. Adding to it, if this is an hospitality scene, then we can look to educators as the hosts of their students, which transforms deeply the way learning strategies are thought and presented. They become hospitality experiences.
The data was collected among students and professors of Centro Universitário Senac São Paulo, Brasil, in two moments. The first one happening from September 12th to 14th as an instrument test, and the second one applying the redesigned forms after the test from September 29th to October 10th. Students and professors were inquired with different forms with its language and questions adapted to each reality and specifications. A total of 55 students and 25 professors responded to the question forms, and its results were analyzed from a qualitative approach. So we had two surveys, one for students and one for professors, but it was also needed to divide them into another groups. That's why we brought Quintarelli that proposed the following divisions according to the age of each group. Natives, and they are the ones that lived their childhood or teenagerhood from 2001 and beyond. So they are from 16 to 21 years old. We also have settlers that were born before the 90s, and they are from 22 to 31 years old. We have the pioneers that started using internet in the middle of the 80s, and they are from 32 to 36 years old. And also immigrants, and they are the ones that were born in a world of material assuredness, and they are more than 37 years old. Once we could divide them into those groups, we could notice that natives and settlers prefer to use formal language to communicate and also use platforms that shows more formality, such as Blackboard and also email. And in order to be more formal, they also use text and image that represents that way to communicate. Whereas we have pioneers and also immigrants that would rather use informal language and different tools, different platforms such as WhatsApp to communicate. On the other hand, we also have the type of language that is used and the type of informality. That's why they use emojis and GIFs. Besides the division proposed about the formal and informal language, it was also asked to students and professors about the way and the channel to communicate directly. So we had chat, video, and audio. And the answer for both sides were about video, where we can see that hospitality is more presented once we can see the other person, we can hear the other person, and also express ourselves. And this was something that came from both sides, also from students and also from the professors. Besides the division proposed about the formal and informal language, it was also asked to students and professors about the way and the channel to communicate directly. So we had chat, video, and audio. And the answer for both sides were about video, where we can see that hospitality is more presented. Once we can see the other person, we can hear the other person, and also express ourselves. And this was something that came from both sides, also from students and also from the professors. Here we have the relation between hospitality and non-live interactions, and also hospitality and live interactions. So when we have the plus sign, it means that it is more important for one type of interaction, and then when we have a minus sign, it means that it is less important or there is no need to use them. So here we have the first one that is about feedback timing and also knowing and calling students by their names. So in both cases are important to use this as a tool to be more polite, to be more hospitable. And then we have chat interactions and slideshow. So it means that it's important when we are talking about non-live interactions, but it is less important when we are talking about live interactions, specifically because it is needed to use video or audio at least. What brings us to the next square that is about audio interaction and video interaction. That is less important for non-live interactions because it's not used. And then we have it uh, for the type of live interactions that is more needed, that is important. And then the last one shows that it's not used and there is no need to use them because it is impolite or it doesn't bring us to a hospitable scene. So we have short monosyllabically interactions and no incentive for students to bring doubts and questions. Here we have the answer of two teachers expressing their experiences. I always start classes by asking how the students are feeling. I ask that at least one student to open the microphone and the camera to share it with us, as their colleagues will interact in the chat. We also agree on the specific days for everyone to open the cameras and look at each other a little. The synchronous live class with the use of slideshows and screen mirroring for live classes are the ones that I see the most interest from students. Assimilation appears to be positive due to the low number of questions or doubts when asked. They engage more when they can develop something live. And here we have an answer from a student. It is surprisingly welcoming when the teacher calls us by our name and seeks ways to interact with students, getting to some of us to open the microphone from time to time.
For our final considerations, this research showed that the hospitality rituals, as known in face-to-face interactions, are transported to online platforms. So it is important that these virtual hospitality scenes get to be researched so that we can understand further how those rituals have an impact over learning efficiency, for example. Also, the data brought by the research pointed that educators are the main responsible for transforming the virtual learning space into a hospitable and therefore more humane encounter, which reassures the relevance of their role in society.
As for the Brazilian scenario, since the efforts to restrain the pandemic have been poorly managed by the government, the educational system can be considered as one of the most affected by the coronavirus pandemic when it comes to negative and long-lasting impacts, including the higher education system. As to this day, April 2021, in Brazil, universities all over the country still find themselves limited to the online alternatives for educational matters. I would like to thank you all so much for joining us on this presentation. Please feel more than welcome to send your comments. It will be a pleasure to build a healthy discussion on the opportunities that this virtual world can bring to the education, relationships, and dynamics.
We would also like to acknowledge Centro Universitário Senac for providing the means and the resources so this research would be viable and for us to enroll this event to deliver this presentation. Thank you also to all students and educators that enrolled our research back in 2020.